Hello and very warm welcome to this special roundtable discussion focus on security in BFSI. Today we are joined by senior industry leader, technology expert. Before beginning the program, I would like to invite first and then thereafter I'll be introducing all our speakers who have joined today. Just to set the context, Mr. Bakshish Datta, country manager from Druva. Sir, if you could just give a brief overview in the beginning and thereafter we'll begin the discussion. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ujale. Hopefully you can call you Ujale, right?
Yes, please.
Thanks, Ujale, for the introduction, and thanks to everybody on the call for having joined, taken off their time. My name is Bakshish, and I'm responsible for the Druva business in the country. And I'll just take 3 to 4 minutes of your time just to share, what are the problems that we solve for the enterprises such as yours, and what are we all about, and would be keen to understand your challenges, and your priorities as well. So basically, Druva, we started out in Pune in about 2008 timeframe, and the problem that we started out to solve for customers was really around data protection and data management. When we started out in 2008, we were an on-premise offering, but we pivoted to cloud pretty early in our journey. And 2010-11 timeframe, we pivoted to the cloud. And today we are a pure play SaaS offering on data protection and management. So, irrespective of where your data resides in your enterprise, it could be on desktop laptops, it could be residing on your cloud applications such as O365 or Google Suite or Salesforce, or it could also be on your proper workloads, data center workloads, file servers, NAS boxes, VMware, etc. Wherever the data may reside, we dedupe the data, encrypt the data, back it up to the cloud. We take away the complexity involved with the hardware, on-premise, which is storage, servers, etc. And once we back up the data in the cloud, we make available the data for restore to the same location or some other location. That's a primary use case that we solve for. But we can also index the data that we backed up, and because of that, we can offer data governance capabilities around e-discovery, legal hold, metadata search, etc. And in the last 2 years, we've seen an increased incidence of malware, ransomware attacks across the enterprises across the globe, in India as well as abroad. And we've kind of developed and introduced an offering around ransomware recovery. We call it ransomware recovery module. That basically essentially helps enterprises such as yourselves address the challenges posed by ransomware and what to do with around data recovery on the same thing. And maybe we can get into detail if that is of interest. Being available from AWS means we are available from AWS data centers across the globe, almost all the availability zones. So therefore, you could choose to keep the data wherever in the data center that's closest to you, and thereby being compliant to data residency laws such as GDPR, etc. across the globe today. At a high level, that's what we do. I'll be very interested to hear about your challenges, hear about your priorities around data protection, data management, and also your, the willingness or openness to the cloud, because, the FSI typically has not been so cloud leaning as others, but that's changing as per what we see. But I would like to hear from the leaders here on their willingness also to go to cloud and their cloud journey as well. Back to you, Ujale. Thanks so much.
Bakshish, for giving the brief overview and your initial remark. Now I'll introduce all the panelists for this panel discussion. So today we are joined by Mr. Tipesha Damapaya, Chief Technology Officer from Upstock, Mr. Kiran Belsekar, Senior Vice President and CISO and IT Governance from Aegon Life Insurance, Mr. Sohan Lal Mukherjee, Chief Information Security Officer from FinCare Small Finance Bank, and Ms. Madhu Malhotra, Chief Technology Officer from Edelweiss General Insurance. And we also have Mr. Bhaskar Sirohi, Director, Global Solution Architect at Druva. Let me begin with Ms. Madhu, with you, what we are noticing now that the IT infrastructure that BFSI organization has been setting, there is a lot of heterogeneity happening, not only in data center, but in general IT infrastructure that you have. And what that brings a lot of complexity in terms of the security. So over the last 2 years, we had pandemic, and that has further accelerated the digital transformation agenda of various organizations across different sectors. So I would like to understand from you in the beginning, what is your general assessment of this trend?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Jale. Yes, the as Bakshish also said, the FSI sector has been not very friendly with having their entire setup on the cloud. They have a very disparate arrangement wherein a lot of infrastructure resides in their premises. While of course the newer applications that they are bringing to the fore, they may be bringing those applications on the cloud, but then this leads to a lot of heterogeneity in terms of data, and hence different techniques of data protection are different both for on premise and for on the cloud. So what happens here is that, so with this disparate arrangement, there is an entire, the entire data protection and privacy, that entire data management has to be done in a very different way for both on-premise and for on the cloud. But what we have seen is, for such organization, the ransomware, the attacks that have been prevalent recently, which about 68% of the Indian organizations say so that they have had a ransomware attack. This disparate arrangement and disparity and a disparate arrangement of data makes them all the more susceptible to such attacks. So having a uniform solution across both cloud and on-premise will definitely help to solve this issue. Having a unified data management strategy, data privacy strategy, having a unified incident management plan, having a unified recovery plan, all of this across both on-premise and the cloud infrastructure will help a lot for all these BFSI industries and organizations, so that they can respond accordingly in case they have such attacks in future. For our organization, we are a digital native organization. We have been we are born on AWS, so we have all such data management and data privacy plans in place. Of course, cybersecurity remains a major issue, and for that, all of us will need to look at more and more technologies and how to further ring fence ourselves.
Right. Would you like to add your views, Mr. Tipesh, especially on the on the view of that, a lot of workload is now being shifted to the cloud, and organization of all sizes are actually experimenting, and that's also create a lot of complexity because we are in the era of a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and different types of workload is going. If you could share your views.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite, and excited to be here. Coming from Amazon, I worked in Amazon before joining Upstocks, and cloud, being the innovator in the cloud space, and the adoption it has taken, it's amazing. Many industries have been very successful, whether it takes from startup to all the way to big government, big companies, technology companies, or even governments, all are adopting cloud in a major way. Fintech is not different. I think the main reason fintech has slowed down, in my view, after coming to fintech industry with Upstocks, is primarily the legacy regions. So that legacy is inhibiting them. But to innovate faster, to adapt, they have to move towards the cloud. And cloud also, you have many even privacy part, legacy, and there might be another privacy regions and other stuff. But cloud offers that. You could have private cloud, you could have public cloud. Based on your use case, definitely cloud will offer that. And I think even in the latest study, by 2025, majority of the industry will be on cloud. So definitely on-premise will come down. Coming to Upstocks, we adopted most of our services are on cloud. We are on Amazon cloud. And we don't have a reason to look for multi-cloud strategy yet. So we're not fond. So, but we do have a very small percentage in our own premise. That is primarily because of legacy region and third-party dependency. So I would, and legacy provides a lot more benefits, whether it could be security, it should be cost or scaling. If you look at it any different angles, and you can focus on, as a business owner or product owner, or any size of the company, they can focus on serving their customers. They can innovate faster in their in the product space instead of focusing on the infrastructure. So definitely cloud is the, I'm more biased towards cloud, and also because of the speed at which you can innovate and serve your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I mean, if you look at over the last 1 decade, cloud somehow become a de facto platform for innovation. So there is no doubt for. But now, as an organization, you are actually buying cloud or possibly moving some of your data and workload in different cloud, maybe AWS, Azure, and any other cloud provider. So what happened now? You have an environment of multi-cloud within your IT infrastructure, and that actually brings some level of complexity, especially when in relation to the cybersecurity, privacy, meeting the compliance and all. Mr. Kiran Belsekar, would you like to add your views on that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on this platform. It's my pleasure. I would say, industry will always see all infrastructure deployment models within an organization. Likewise, from a well-established organizations, from banks or insurance companies which have been regulated, and to a cloud-born or a cloud-native organizations like fintechs or an insurtech. Which means that we are always going to have an on-prem infrastructure, a private cloud and a public cloud. These are going to stay. And if you look at largely from the cloud strategy perspective, even the regulated organizations are also looking at it. So as per the research as well, 66% of the cloud is leveraged for innovations like cloud native apps for improving the customer experience, since it brings a lot of agility, time to market, and capability perspective, and the ability to execute new ideas as well. And if you look at it, it's an API economy. So we all are consumers as well as the producers. So you never know. It's an interconnected world. So I think the hybrid cloud is here to stay. Is my views.
Right, Mr. Mukherjee, would you like to share your views?
Hi, Ujjwal. I think thanks for making me part of this panel. We need to understand that cloud journey, when we're saying cloud journey, and then a lot of people are telling that, okay, no, we have a regulated space, we are in the highly regulated like banks. So cloud journey is very difficult for us. I want to ask you, what is the email system you are using? And believe me, the most secret or most the classified data is floating around the organization is over email as an attachment or as part of the mail. Any technology and security professional will say that you can have database, you can have all controls, you can have everything, but majority of the things are actually floating on the emails, and that emails majority of the organization is now O365, and actually knowingly and unknowingly every organization is on the cloud. Cloud is I think there is no choice. If you want to be a digital future ready, you have to leverage the power of cloud. Click of a button in a conventional data center to provision a VMware or VM or a physical machine or a database. It's a humongous task. You have to do a license management and all these things, where the cloud give you the power to click up a button, another 10 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes or somewhere, if you are going for a heavy machines, you record 10 minutes, your machine is ready, up and running. You need not record anything to configure. If you want to configure a load balancer, if you want to do a DNS, everything is ready on a click of a button. Only thing you should know. Now, what challenges poses the cloud is one of the parameters we need to look into. What is the correct model we are using, and where is the boundary of responsibility starts and ends? If we are leveraging, every organization more or less is now on the hybrid architecture. Somewhere some people who are highly regulated may have migrated their innovation space, development, innovation testing phase in the cloud. and then their production maybe or somewhere the less important applications are on the cloud. But if you see cloud, how data is stored over there, it's not on a physical hard disk. It dispersed on a multiple area on a parity bit attached to that. So you actually don't know where is your data actually. And that's where when you want to destroy the data or come out of the cloud, you cannot go for overwriting, degaussing and everything, which is not. So you have to encrypt your data and destroy it.
Right.
So fundamentally in such a case, where is the location of my data? And if you see the entire regulated space, entire complexity, it's all revolving around the data, security of the data. If you can ensure that wherever you are, nobody is having any challenge. But cloud being a multi-tenant environment, shared environment, that poses a challenge on the data management. And if you have the right tool, right visibility, how my data is flowing, where it is stored, what is the from create to archival and to destroy the phase, I know where my data, how they are managed, how they are within our control. I think things can be leveraged well.
Right.
And in that space, I think there is a right direction where cloud providers are also coming in a much more transparent way to give visibility. And I say the third parties, the integrator between a cloud customer and cloud service provider, they will give you. You don't require anything, you require an agent, and it will seamlessly mine your data, where they are stored and how they are being used. And once this visibility will come, I think regulators are also knows the power of cloud. Gradually that build down will happen, and more or less by 2025 to 2030, 90% worth of workload will be leveraging the power of cloud.
Right, absolutely. Now I'll go to Mr. Bhaskar Sirohi. Mr. Bhaskar, few things are very much clear based on what our speaker have been saying, that cloud is the de facto for innovation. It is going to be adopted, and it has been adopted a lot. Whether you are going private, public, multi, hybrid, whatever you say, it's going to be there. Now that, especially for the BFSI industry, that brings to a different challenge altogether. Because BFSI industry right now, in terms of the customer experience, facing a kind of challenge in a way, like the customer is expecting an experience of Zomato type, Swiggy type from a bank. Okay, on the go, they want to do it. At the same time, you need to ensure that you are highly regulated compared to those industry. That means you need to somehow create a fine balance between the agile infrastructure that you use, the security framework that you have. So I would like to understand from you, based on your experience, what should be the balanced security framework while anybody is trying to explore cloud for any workload?
That's a great question, Ujjwal, and I'll probably give you a very long answer, right? And this is coming from our experience as a vendor in this industry, from data protection, data management, and data governance perspective, right? As you rightly said, there's a customer pressure, right? People want instant gratification. You have to live with that, right? But it doesn't mean that you can lower your security standards, because that has a very big negative impact. Because if you have a breach, your name is gone for a toss. You are basically liable for certain fines as well, depending on which country you are. So it has both image and financial aspects related to it, right? Now, if any organization, if you look at any cloud solution, right, there are things which you have to look for, right? First of all, you have to look for a system which is cloud native, right? Which is built ground up for cloud. If you're doing lift and shift kind of an architecture, so what you're doing is you're taking your legacy security architecture and moving it to cloud. So that doesn't give you any advantage. In fact, you're still with the same old principle. It is just that you decided to not use a data center, but decided to use cloud. Now, this is still happening because there are certain legacy applications which cannot be ported. So they are just lifted and shifted, right? So being cloud native, using the technologies which are built for cloud, makes your architecture, you can say, service oriented, right? Now, once you have a service oriented architecture, you are looking at your security from a zero trust architecture perspective, right? Zero trust architecture doesn't mean that you don't trust people. It is just that in a case of a breach, there's not a person who's responsible for it, right? So I'll give you an example. if there is, let's say, a breach which happens, right? There's a security flaw or vulnerability which is being identified. Now, in a traditional environment, let's say you have a data center, you might go and patch your 10 servers first and then next 10 servers and all that, right? Whereas in cloud, what you want to do is when you identify a breach or a vulnerability, it's a 0-day attack. That's how you consider it. And you want to go and patch everything at a given moment of time. So each customer gets patched automatically at the same time. So you can think of how security architecture is going to look like from that perspective, right? So zero trust architecture. And the final thing I'll say is like, look at the way that the vendor is handling your data, right? So for example, are they managing the keys properly? Where are the encryption keys stored? Are they stored with the vendor itself? And is the vendor making those keys available to third parties itself? That's a big no-no. It's a red flag, right? So do look at that, and also look at what you can say cloud security best practices there or compliance best practices or certifications they are following. So if you look, I'll give you an example of Druva, the organization I come from. We take security very seriously. We don't store encryption keys with us. It is the customer who basically makes sure that they can do key management on their own, right? The thing is like we take our own audits very seriously. So we get regularly audited. Like we are FedRAMP certified, right? Now people in US will relate to it because it's a federal requirement if you want to go and sell into federal space. But that means that we are being audited constantly, right? We are audited for ISAE 3400, which is one of the standards being used, right? We are HIPAA compliant. We have to go for other certifications as well, depending on which region you are in. But the idea is that the security is not just a bunch of libraries which you use. It's a basically in cloud when it's your bread and butter. If you fail in your business itself.
Right. Ms. Madhu Malhotra, if you would like to add your views, especially in relation to providing a great customer experience, a delightful customer experience, also ensuring that your backend and front end both are secure.
Yeah, so I think so. In a great customer experience, it is the entire application which comes together, which includes the backend, the front end, your database, and while as Bhaskar rightly said, while ensuring a great customer experience, why should I compromise on the data security that I have to embed as part of that experience? So data security while transmission, data security of the data which is at rest, security of the endpoints, security of the network. And of course, lastly, as I said, a data at rest needs to be secured, which is encryption or hashing or all those methods by which you secure the data at rest. So all these are very important. And yes, the customer experience has to be is a prime objective, and that cannot be compromised because of in spite of providing, having a very low security posture, the security posture can equally be higher.
Right. Mr. Thevesh, would you like to add your views, especially on balancing customer experience and having a kind of security framework which gives you same level of security, whether you are hosting your data on your own prem or in cloud, wherever it is?
Yeah, so like I think that's a great question. So when you're talking about customer experience, customer expects securing their data. So the trust needs to be there, especially in the finance domain. We're dealing with money and their bank accounts, even payments and all of that. So the trust required is higher than any other industry, and that's why we have more regulations as put in place to protect the customer. So giving that trust, so we have to protect their data, and every transaction needs to be encrypted, and also governance, security governance becomes important. Anything we do, how do you make sure that whether it could be from employees to vendors to contractors, all the permission controls are managed very well, audited, and also how do you protect even the cloud? It comes with, if you don't follow the best practices of the cloud, whether it's configuring firewall, auditing firewall, or I think other or panel spoke about the access management and sharing the keys and all of that. So you have to continuously audit and have a governance mechanisms. And so it's very important. So otherwise you could lose a customer trust very easily. So the cloud provides the best tools, but we have to leverage it with our own mechanisms inside the company.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Kiran, if you'd like to add your views, no doubt the cloud provide one of the best security, but ultimately the responsibility lies with the CIOs, the CISOs, and CTOs. So how do you actually balance? Because the business would like you to provide the kind of agility, the kind of experience that companies like Facebook, Google, Ola, and Uber are actually providing to their customer. So how do you balance that?
So first of all, while the agility comes from the cloud, I think with that, it also comes more attention to the security as well. So last 2 years, I think I should say, at least for my case, and I can vouch from the other CIOs and CTOs, it was a nightmare for all of us in terms of from the security angle perspective, where we would have been seen the protectors and attackers both are working from home remotely, and it's a very unfair world. I should say that the attacker has to be right once, and while the CISOs and CIOs has to be right every time. So I think, and that's how it is. Like even a one vulnerability can get you, can create a chaos and put the organizations on knees, I think. So that has been very critical aspect, security, I would say. And if you look at from the security perspective, or specifically on the cloud security side, there has been a 42% jump. And this rise is primarily because of a human error. And that's all because of the misconfiguration issues. So the cloud misconfiguration needs to be managed by a continuous compliance check. I think that's one thing. While we are adopting cloud, I think this is something which we need to really ensure when we are looking at while we are going fast. But these adoptions also we need to be looked at from the misconfiguration, the posture management perspective.
Right, absolutely. Earlier, I believe Mr. Bhaskar and Mr. Kiran, you both spoke about, you touch around the cloud native data protection. So, Mr. Mukherjee, I would like to understand from you, how do you look at the advantages of cloud native data protection, such as natural air gap, automating or patching, or maybe using the next generation technology such as machine learning and AI capabilities, which is somehow becoming an integral part of many solutions that different organizations are offering. And that becomes quite important in relation to having an ideal security architecture, because manually it's not doable. I mean, you need to have an automated way, maybe having a 95% or 99% accuracy. How do you look at it?
Okay, I think the answer has been given by Kiran. A hacker only need one gap, and as CISO, CIO, CTO need to plug thousands, even the millions. And if I say in any firewall or there are 65,535 virtual ports, and if you have 10,000 assets, you think through how many gaps you need to fill up, and one gap it need to be identified by a hacker. So in such a scenario, it's quite heterogeneous. You have a corporate offices, you have branch offices, you have private data center, you have public data center, you have third-party service provider. Now, even the SolarWinds has proved that even though you have managed your assets correctly, your third-party, your supply chain attacks are now is one of the potent factor. It is very difficult to, I say, compromise of, let's say, example of bigger organization like JP Morgan, Bank of America, or you say State Bank of India, but they have a small players who are working at the bottom of the supply chain, probably printing the card data or doing something. And those are actually the stage for starting an attack for a hacker, because if now looking into such a heterogeneous environment, is it possible for per se 10 members, 20 members, or per se 100, 200 members of security, or 400 pairs of eyes will be able to secure an organization which may be geographically apart, people are working from home and all these things? So you need some sort of these things that how do you find out the gaps? Point number one, insider threats has been increased. Ransomware, I think the attackers now leveraging insider, they are giving them bounty to plant a backdoor in the insider system. Disgruntled employees, people are losing their jobs. The cyber pandemic has created a different mindset. People are hyper tense more than ever. They are going through a mental agony. They are near death get affected. So organization is a collection of people who are working in the diverse environment, diverse situation, background, financial background, social background, political, their affiliation, their religious affiliation, and all these things were there. And then you 10 pairs, 20 pairs, or 100 pairs eyes cannot find out everything and plug all these gaps. Even clicking on one phishing email is more than enough to compromise an organization. Or somebody bringing up USB drive and you have not monitoring that your USB has been blocked and plug into the system, done and dusted. A CNC communication has been established. So in such a heterogeneous situation, how do you identify those areas is only through automation, through AI, through ML, through identifying the changes. Initially, before pandemic, you say, you have to find out the which is abnormal, not normal. Now, when people are working from home, I think between the normal and between the not so normal has become diminished. People are connected to different VPN, different times, different time zones, different support system. So I think the situation or the industry has gone through a drastic change in last 2 years during pandemic. The digitization has taken space. If you now see in 1 year, 34, 40 unicorns in India. So that's the, and on top of that, which all panelists will be, I think will be agree with me, is a talented or credible resource crunch. If you see, people are jumping from here and there for junior resources. They have joined 2 months with 30-40% hike and then jumping the ship. It's a human crisis, a huge competition to get the correct set of people to manage your cloud, to manage your infrastructure. Right. How will you do that in such a situation? It's a nightmare for us. We don't know tomorrow morning we woke up and open the mail and find 2-3, I think resignation letter is waiting for your email boxes. That set the tone of your day as a CISO or CIO or CTO in the technology space. So that's where we are as
yes, I completely agree with you. Now I'll go to Mr. Bhaskar. Mr. Mukherjee raised a couple of very important points. One is that the contour of security is increasing the way the technology adoptions are increasing. Also for the hacker or attacker, their attack surface is increasing like never before. So you as an organization need a greater visibility because these things may come from internal challenges, external attacks also. And there actually what we have been observing over the last few years that cloud native data protection, especially role of technology such as AI, machine learning and all is being utilized in a very bigger way. I would like to understand from you, Mr. Mukherjee raised 3-4 very important challenges. And that challenge is across different sectors, not only BFSI. What should be an ideal way of having a greater visibility into your IT infrastructure? So whatever changes are happening, whatever is happening, at least with a minimum time frame, you should be able to reply to that rather than, let's say, some attack has happened today and you are taking 6 hours or 5 hours to find out. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely great points. And let me add, because see, we are a company which works with data, right? Because from a data protection perspective, our first job is to make sure to back up that data consistently and make it available for any disaster, right? So that disaster could be human error, as pointed out by the panelists, or it could be a cyber attack, or it could be a ransomware attack, right? So our responsibility, we are the insurance policy to make sure that the data which has been backed up gets back to you so that you don't pay a ransom. Right. So first thing what we did was when we built our architecture, we built it in a particular manner that if your primary infrastructure is impacted by a ransomware or a malware, that should not go and impact the secondary environment where you're taking your backups, right? And we have done that by using a lot of cloud native technology. So I'll give you an example. Let's say if you have a database server, which is running in a particular operating system, right? Now, operating system provides an environment for a ransomware to go and execute. It could be Windows, it could be Linux, Mac, anything, right? But when we store data, we are a completely serverless architecture, which means that there is no operating environment for a ransomware to go and execute itself. So the first thing for us was that we built an architecture wherein whatever impacts your primary infrastructure or data should not impact your secondary data, which is very much useful when a ransomware or a malware attack happens and you're trying to do a recovery, right? Second, what we do is, and this is very important in our philosophy, is that once you have captured the data, right, don't let it sit idle. Otherwise, it becomes a data graveyard, right? Can you do more with that data, right? So one of the things what we have built as the latest module is what we call as ransomware recovery module. So what we do is, as we are collecting the data, if we see anything unusual happening in that data, we basically can go and raise an alert, which we call as unusual data activity alert, which goes to your security tools, like if you have a source system or a SIM system, and we basically go and integrate with these tools. Now, once an alert has been raised, your security tools can go and perform a scan as well, right? So they can say, oh, you know what, these are the group of servers or these are the group of devices which are together, go and do a scan. Or you can ask us to do a scan. You can ask us also to go and quarantine the data so that in a case of a ransomware attack, you're not recovering a data which has been impacted by a ransomware, because ransomwares are very notorious. A typical ransomware attack plays out not just in a couple of days, it could play out in months. So the moment it enters your network, it can stay dormant and it will wait for the perfect opportunity, scan your network, and then it will unveil itself, right? So we have mechanisms wherein we can do forensic searches against the data, right? So if you can give me the fingerprint of the ransomware, I can tell you which 10 servers and which timeline it came into. You can quarantine the snapshots, you can clean them. And the best part, what we do is at the end of it, because you want to recover your data and you want to cleanly recover it, we create something which we call as a golden snapshot, right? And in this process, what we do is we discard all the file versions which are impacted by a ransomware, and we give you a clean version of the file. Now, all this, the unusual data activity, understanding what a ransomware, when an encryption happens, the file entropy changes, all this, we are using AI and ML in the background. So every time there is a change in data, let's say there's a file server, or if you have a NAS device, which has, let's say, 1 million files. Now, on a daily basis, you are probably changing 10,000 files, right? And then suddenly a ransomware attack happens and it encrypted, let's say it encrypted all million files, right? For your NAS, it's nothing. But for data protection, because we are seeing an entropy change, and how to figure out an entropy change is a machine learning algorithm which works in the back. So absolutely. So the value of secondary data is that don't let it sit idle. You can do a lot more. The first step what we did was with good data governance. We said that the secondary copy is much more valuable. You can come and actually use this for your e-discovery, your GDPR compliance kind of requirements. We see security as a very important factor right now since ransomware attacks have started. We have also seen in some industries that they would like this data to be available because this is secondary copy. And because you want to preserve your primary infrastructure, compute and all that, you want to use the secondary copy because it scales very well in cloud. You want to use for like your machine learning training models, right? So this is a very different use case, but it's a use case wherein you're using your secondary data for your own industry's machine learning AI requirements altogether. So internally, yes, big proponent of using AI and ML in security. That's how the module has been designed. In fact, we do use AI and ML even to learn when an admin logs into our system. So how are they logging in? Are they logging in from different locations, different devices? Is there a pattern? So we try to do all those things within our software itself.
Right, absolutely. Many of you have a very hard stop. So this is the last question that I will have. We are in the final leg of this panel discussion. Ms. Madhu Malhotra, I would like to understand from you in the end, what are the two key immediate priorities that you see a technology leader, especially who's taking care of security, should have right now in relation to imbibing cloud and ensuring security?
Yeah, see, so we are a digital cloud native organization. All our workload is on the cloud. So for me, the top two priorities, the first priority would be the data security, the data which resides, all my customer data which resides on the cloud. How do I go about strengthening my security posture around the data architecture that I have created and the entire data lifecycle governance? Second would be how do I bring the next generation of secure operations into place, what we call as XDR, which is extended detection and response, which takes care of all your AI/ML practices and technologies, which Bhaskar has also spoken about. What it does is it collects the data across various sources, across various sources of the data that you get across multiple layers of endpoints and cloud information, and then what it does is it correlates all this data, and then it provides what do I need to do to prevent any further data loss that may happen in my environment, and if there are any such gaps, it also points towards plugging those gaps in my entire data architecture. So yes, these would be my top two priorities.
Mr. Tripesh, would you like to add your views, especially two immediate key priorities for security leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. One thing is like always, instead of being defensive, it's how do we be offensive as well? I think AI and ML can play in that role, definitely. So we are looking at tools in the industry, as well as we are doing in piloting some of the tools where we can proactively look for this one as a ransomware if it's already in the network. How do we detect it? For example, I'll give you an analogy is if you have a house, we put different alarms, right? So there's in addition to the door locks. So if somebody open the glass door, we get alarms. So here is if somebody entered the system, how fast you can detect and remove that and protect your data is going to be critical. That is the one offensive and defensive. What are the additional tools we need to leverage, and we'll be focusing on that. The second one is, again, we are also bringing in senior leadership talent during this time has been super critical. How do we get the senior top talent as well to the organization to make sure that we protect our customer data and have the best policies and governance?
Right. Mr. Kiran, your views?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it short. So two recommendations. One is deploy right tools to get right visibility so that you detect the anomaly in the environment quite early. So that's where I was talking about having a continuous compliance checks to be in place. That's one. The second one is try to build a security as a code. Try to shift the ownership of these to the entire team. It is not basically cybersecurity is a team sports and not only the responsibility of the security team. So there is a concept of shift left or DevSecOps. So try to keep the security as early as in the life cycle. Try to integrate the security processes into your development process so that development team is also getting early involved in the security chain. Yeah, that's two quick ones for me.
Right. Mr. Mukherjee, very interesting thought from Mr. Kiran. Security is a teamwork rather than one person playing or having all the control.
Yeah, definitely. I told you that a few pair of eyes cannot secure the entire organization. And believe me, in BFSI sector, our primary and most important asset is customer trust. If it is goes,
Right.
none of the bank or I say insurance industry is in existence. So fundamentally, COVID has brought into a great level of hardship. People cannot go visit the branches and all these things. As a CISO, I think security is an enabler. So from that side, my mindset is that we should enable the business so that the digitization take that to the last mile connectivity of the customer, and they should be rest assured that their data, their asset with the bank or with the organization is secure, and we are committed to that more than anything else.
Right. Absolutely. Mr. Bhaskar, your views, especially around a couple of things that cybersecurity leaders in BFSI industry should be looking at it to pep up their security, whatever they are doing right now.
I think one thought which comes to my mind is like, there is no one vendor or no one player who can give you complete security. So security is also become an ecosystem play. And I think what will happen in future is that those systems will stay, which can integrate with each other or talk to each other. So that's one very important thing, which I feel like we are into data space, right? And we view data, whereas there might be a security player which can integrate with us and give a little bit better visibility and better, you can say, workflows in case of a vulnerability or a hack or a ransomware attack, right? So that's one point of view I have. The second point of view I have is, the world is going to go and be multi-cloud. There is no doubt about it, right? And that multi-cloud definition doesn't mean AWS versus Azure. That definition means you have SaaS. So you are using SaaS vendors. As one of the panelists said that, where is your email? Your email is sitting in M365, right? So how do you protect that data? That is slightly different definition of cloud because it's SaaS, right? You might not have an Azure account, but you have a M365 account. Similarly, so protecting all these different cloud, you can say, models will be very difficult, right? And also data being on these different cloud models altogether, whether it's private, whether it's hybrid, whether it's pure cloud, whether it's SaaS, whether it's infrastructure as a service, right? The more copies of your data you create, the visibility part is the most difficult part, right? So how do you get visibility into that data is the most important thing, because if you don't have visibility, you cannot protect the data, right? So having a visibility is the most important thing from a security perspective. So these are the two things which I'll end with.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for taking out time, especially Ms. Madhu Malhotra, Ms. Tipesha, Mr. Sohanlal Mukherjee, Mr. Kilan Belsekar. I think he has dropped. Thank you for sharing your views on crunching the numbers on cloud-native ransomware recovery for financial services. And you all spoke quite well, especially in relation to why adoption of cloud is important. And there is a broader understanding the future is going to be a multi-cloud. At the same time, why we need to create a newer architecture for security. We need to be more visible about what kind of workload we are shifting, how we are managing, and also some of the views, especially around the use of next generation technology for patching, especially artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all, which can automate a lot of work. So thank you for being such a wonderful panelist and sharing your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.